Yeah, Hi everyone, good afternoon.
Hi, Patience, you're muted, please.
Okay, so we have very wonderful people that will be talking to us about this topic today. And before then, let's just quickly establish agenda. So we'll have introduction about AFC, we'll have the participant sharing session, we'll have our speakers presentation, after which we'll go to the portal walkthrough, membership drive, and then we'll close for the day. So quickly, just like we always, okay, we've never done this before with you, so you don't know. So we'd like you to introduce yourself in the comment section, tell us your name, your country, and your agribusiness. We always do this because we know it's an opportunity for like-minded entrepreneurs to meet with each other and then to be able to connect and do big things with each other. So really, you also have to take this a step further to tell us how you are feeling about this live interactive session. It's your first live session, so you should tell us, are you excited about it? Are you looking forward to having a very beautiful engagement? How do you feel? Tell us with an emoji of your choice. So quickly, we'll be doing about African food chain makers. So African food chain makers, we believe that small and medium scale enterprises are the lifeblood of the food ecosystem in Africa. These enterprises are driven by visionary, dynamic, and innovative entrepreneurs just like you, who operate as primary producers, aggregators, processors, distributors, finance and technology providers, chefs, cooks, consultants, and innovators. We call them change makers. That's why you are a change maker. And these change makers are faced with the devastating impact of climate change, global and local risks and shocks, macro and microeconomic challenges. These entrepreneurs need funding, they need training, visibility, market linkages, and a community of support to successfully scale their businesses. Through the African Food Chain Makers Hub, we enable African entrepreneurs to start and scale resilient and sustainable agribusinesses that nourish Africa and the world at large. And then how do we do, or what do we do around this? It is community, it is data and opportunities, visibility and recognition, then learnings and trainings, just like the BRACE program that you're doing now. So before we go into the business of the day, one thing we always do is to allow participants share their learnings from the module. So we know that most of you have gone through module one, you've gone through all of the videos in the portal, and then you've been able to learn one or two things from it. So we want you to tell us your key takeaway from module one. So if you have a key takeaway from the module, please let us know. And so I'll just let you raise your hand now, and I'll call you to share your key takeaway. Please, so I'm going to check and see if anybody is raising their hand. So if you want to share your key learnings or key takeaway from the module, from module one, please let us know, raise your hand, and I will call you to, share your thoughts. Okay, I think I'm having one hand. Magui, hi here. So please unmute and go ahead. Okay, I'm not sure I heard anything. Okay, I'm having another hand. I'm asking you to unmute and share. Omolola, right? Okay, Omolola, please go ahead and share.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay, I really want to thank you for the opportunity for this training because sincerely, when I consider climate change, what I used to focus on is just the effects, the temperature. But after watching the videos, that's the case studies on the effects of the flood, I saw that we are not doing enough in with regards to advocacy and the things that can be done to mitigate this. So for me, it's more like a call to action. I've seen that this is not just about noise. Some people will say it's a propaganda. It is not. And the earlier we address this, the better it will be, not just for the farmers, but for us as a nation. Because when people lose their economic means, their means of livelihood, it will impact the nation as a whole. So I'm grateful for this opportunity, and I'm grateful to African Kingmakers for having me on this platform. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Omolola. Thank you for sharing that. Oh, I have so many answers now. I can't call everybody. Okay, this is a reminder. Please, if you're not using your name, please rename yourself so we're able to take your attendance. I can see ITEL AC71L raising the hand. Please and please rename yourself to your real name so that when we take the attendance, we're able to take it for you. Otherwise, and like we've always announced, the live interactive session is also very important for certificate download. So if you do not rename yourself, well, we may not be able to capture your attendance. Thank you so much. So I tell AC7, please go ahead. Thank you. I'm asking you to unmute and go ahead. Okay, Amina Jumai, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Okay, all right. ITEL, please rename yourself. Thank you so much. And quickly tell us your name since I didn't see your name there.
My name is Olani Ibrahim. I'm from Nigeria, Osun State,
Okay.
Nigeria. Right? So I'm so much excited, due to the trainings we received in our last session. It meant a lot to me. So I'm really grateful. And I'm also going to share my own knowledge, the little knowledge I had from the module, which is climate change. So I actually learned about a lot about the effects that actually comes to climate change. What I really understand the fact that it's not only the farm alone, it actually affects everything as far as the whole ecosystem is concerned. And I believe that for us to be able to prevent shocks and occurrence, and the training also exposed us. It's exposed to us how the way to mitigate such action, which is planting of cover crop and practicing crop rotation so as to prevent erosion and all other damages to crops and farmland. So thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing. So I have so many hands raised. So what we'll do is I'll call two more people to share, and then we get to the speakers' presentation. After the speakers are done, and then we've had our Q&A, I'll come back to all of you that still want to share their thoughts, so we don't keep our speakers waiting. So I'll just call the next two people, Anas Mohammed and then Jonathan Gauja. So please, Anas Mohammed, I'm asking you to unmute and speak.
I want to remove myself.
Anas Mohammed, please go ahead. Is there someone else not muted? Please mute yourself if you've not been asked to speak. So, Gaius, please speak. I think I'm not seeing.
Yeah,
All right,
hello
please go
everyone.
ahead.
Yeah, hello everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Guy Olorunsogo from Ogun State, Nigeria. So what I took away from the module sessions earlier is how that this climate effect is. I think one of it mentioned how that 40% farmers suffer 40% of the effect from climate, and how that adaptation and mitigation is necessary if we are going to combat this climate change, if we are going to survive the climate change. So bringing to mind the need for sustainable methods of doing our farming practices. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So because I still have one more person, Ariane, please go ahead. Sharon, please go ahead and speak. Hi, Ariane. Can you hear me? I'm asking you to unmute and speak. Okay. So thank you very much, everyone that has spoken. I'm sorry I can't have everyone speak now because we need to get to our speakers' presentation. So after everything, we'll come back to you. Everybody that wants to share their thoughts, will allow you to share your thoughts after the speakers' presentation. So quickly, we'll go to the first speaker. This first speaker is Benjamin Mukoro. Is the coordinator for Global Center for Law, Business and Economy. Dr. Benjamin Mukoro is the coordinator of the Global Center for Law, Business and Economy, a research center and think tank that works in the development space using an interdisciplinary lens. In this role, he has overseen the organizing of the African Climate Forum, ACF, a premier event that brings together leading minds to chart actionable net zero pathways for Africa economies. Dr. Mukoro has been a speaker and contributor to different initiatives such as the National Agricultural Development Fund, Rural Electrification Agency, and the Global South Dialogue on Economic Crime. He holds a doctoral degree in commercial and corporate law. He also has a CFA and ACCA certificate in climate finance and has engaged the topic of climate change through different media, including scholarly publications. With a virtual round of applause, let us welcome Benjamin Mukoro, PhD, to the podium. Good evening or good afternoon, sir. Hi, Doctor, sir. Can you hear me? Hi, Doctor. Oh, sorry, you were not made a co-host. Sorry, I've just done that. Please, can you hear me now? Can you speak now, sir?
Yes, I can hear you now.
All right. Thank you so much, sir. All right, so welcome, sir. So I'm handing over the virtual podium to you now. Thank you so much. So I'll just stop sharing so that you can continue from here.
Thank you, and thank you for that warm introduction. Good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you are listening. So I'll just give me a minute. Let me put up my slides. You see my slides now?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, so I'll just put it on slideshow. Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. My name again is Benjamin Okoro, and I've been asked to do a presentation on climate change in agribusiness. And the presentation is in two parts. We'll be looking, the first part, we'll be looking at the critical need for climate adaptation in agri-SMEs. So, for starters, agriculture, why do we need climate adaptation in agriculture? Why in the first place do we need to adapt to climate change in the agricultural sector? So first of all, we need to know that human activity is a major driver of climate change, and agriculture is one of those human activities that drives climate change. It's a high emitting sector, and as a result of that, it has been identified as a priority sector by most countries as part of their national determined contributions under the Paris Climate Agreement. Now, interestingly, all African countries have signed the Paris Agreement and have committed to reducing greenhouse gases in their agricultural sectors. This means agriculture-focused climate action. So you can see the reason why we have to target the agricultural sector for climate adaptation. Now, just to give a general word on climate action typically happens in three categories: mitigation, adaptation, and loss and damage, which is less often mentioned than mitigation and adaptation. Now, mitigation refers to actions taken by stakeholders to, let me get back to my slide. So mitigation refers to actions taken by stakeholders to reduce or prevent greenhouse gas emissions or to enhance carbon sinks that remove these gases from the atmosphere. And climate adaptation, which is what we are concerned about today, deals with actions that help reduce vulnerability to the current or expected impact of climate change, like weather extremes, such as extreme rainfall or extreme heat, natural disasters, biodiversity loss, food and water insecurity. So in the course of our presentation, we will understand what we mean by vulnerability, but I'll just throw a word on it here. Vulnerability basically means your exposure to climate risk, which means that for you to be able to adapt, to create an adaptation plan as an agri business person, you need to understand what your climate risks are. So, and those climate risks typically are classified into two categories: the physical risk, which are the physical weather events, such as rainfall, extreme heat, droughts, floods, and all that. These are the physical risks. And then you have the transition risk, which are the risks that arise from failing to adapt or even trying to adapt, because even in the process of adaptation, there are risks that are involved in adaptation. So the final category of climate action is loss and damage compensation, which refers to the compensation for the unavoidable impacts of climate change that occur despite or in the absence of climate mitigation or adaptation. So continuing with why agribusinesses must adapt to climate change. So as mentioned above, agriculture is a high emitting sector, and agriculture is vulnerable not only to the physical effects of climate change, but also to transition risk. And most importantly, adaptation is the only guarantee of a sustainable future. Why is this? Because without adaptation, you'll be exposed to the risk, and the risk will materialize, giving rise to a lot of negative circumstances, such as loss of harvest, low crop yield, eventually giving rise to famines and insecurities, human displacement, and all that. So the only way to have a sustainable agricultural sector and a sustainable society, as a matter of fact, is to adapt. So proper adaptation planning requires classification of agricultural activities, estimating their emissions profiles, and evaluating climate risk or vulnerability. So classifying agricultural activities simply means looking at your value chain, which is specific to each agripreneur in this case, looking at your value chain and identifying the risk. So the value chain for a farmer, for a crop farmer, would be different from the value chain for a livestock farmer. So in order to properly plan your adaptation, you have to look at your value chain and then identify your value chain segments, and then ask yourself, what are these activities that I'm exposed to? What is the frequency of this activity? And what is the impact that these activities have when they happen? So when you ask that, you now go to the other part of assessing your vulnerability, which is sensitivity. When these impacts do occur, what effect do they have? For instance, when there is drought, having looked at the possibility of drought, the frequency of drought, for instance, and the in general impact of drought, you now go on to ask yourself, well, how sensitive is my own business to a drought or to a flood or any other extreme weather events? So by doing that, you can now understand your level of exposure to the physical climate risk, and that would help you to create a practicable and actionable adaptation plan at a business level. So in this slide, we're just looking at the different stages for crop farming, agro, forestry, livestock farming, and how much emissions they create, how much emissions come from the activities, the value chains associated with these different areas of farming or agro business. So I'm just going to run through them because we'll share the slides with everyone later. So you can see that, for instance, farming, you have, for use of synthetic fertilizers, you have nitrous oxide, agricultural waste creates CO2, land clearing also reduces carbon sink, thereby increasing CO2. So all these things have a negative effect on the weather. So this is looking at it from another side, from the angle of how much farmers contribute to climate change. That is looking at it from this angle. So this is a form of adaptation as well, changing your farming practices to low carbon agricultural practices. But the flip side of it is the physical weather events, that must occur because climate change has already gone far to some extent, and we're already beginning to feel the effect. So it's a two-way thing. Farmers try to engage in low carbon farm practices, but at the same time, they also have to plan for the risk that comes from extreme weather events as a result of climate change that has already occurred. So that's it. So like I said, I'll just run through the slides. Transportation for farming, the transportation, storage, and processing stage with their associated emissions. So I'll just run through all this pattern. Now, So back to climate vulnerability of agribusinesses in Africa and the need for adaptation. Like I mentioned earlier, the climate risks are of two kinds: the physical risk and the transition risk. Physical risks are those arising from the physical effects of climate change, such as seasonal variations, increase in temperature, flooding, and then you have the transition risks that arise from transitioning or failing to transition. Examples include divestment of investors from carbon-intensive businesses, market boycotts. We are aware that in Europe and in some other places now, there are systems, labeling systems in place to identify sustainably produced products. So going forward in the future, it would be very difficult for farmers that are farming unsustainably to export their products into certain markets. So one of the transition risks that will materialize for such farmers would be inability to access certain markets. So both the physical and transition risks compel adoption of adaptation strategies that will create climate resilient agribusinesses. And talking about resilience, what is resilience? Resilience basically refers to the ability to
Hello, Assalamu alaikum.
envisage, the ability
Assalamu
to.
alaikum.
Someone is unmuted. Okay, so resilience basically refers to the ability to envisage, to prepare for, and to recover from the effects of climate risk. So for a resilient agribusiness that experiences a climate event, they would have been able to predict it through early warning systems, through learning and access to certain resources. They would have been able to predict it, prepare for it, and then recover effectively from the effects of that climate event. So this is just a list of physical climate risks that might occur. Floods, droughts, extreme temperatures, storms. We all know that, most of us know that as the weather changes, it changes the kinds of diseases that farmers are vulnerable to, whether livestock farms or crop farms. Pest infestations will occur. Invasive species will begin to appear in different areas because of the change in weather patterns and migratory patterns of animals and other organisms. There will be forest fires, heavy, unexpected changes in precipitation, of course. So all this will happen, and these, again, tell us that we must adapt. We must adapt. So like I mentioned before, transition risks are also there. Some of them include consumer demand shifts. There will be shifts in consumer demand. Consumers will begin to be more environmentally responsible, demanding that their products be sourced sustainably. There will be supply chain disruptions for certain products because of shortage of maybe seeds or low crop yield. And imagine the beverage industry that relies on crops like cocoa. If there's a low crop yield, there will be a supply disruption to those industries. There will be regulatory compliance requirements, which is a risk, for a transition risk for agribusinesses, because if you don't comply, there will be consequences. And even if you have to comply, there will be compliance costs. So those things have to be factored into organizational or business strategy. And then there is also reputational risk for those that don't adapt properly. And of course, I already mentioned transition costs that are associated with all this. So like I mentioned earlier, each physical or transition risk requires a targeted adaptation strategy. And this calls for the ability and to understand and model diverse climate scenarios. So on the slide, you can see a little model, a linear model, very simple and straightforward. There's a climate factor, which is referring to the weather event that is likely to occur, then the impact, and then you have the adaptation. So wherever there's a factor or something that is likely to occur and is likely to have impact, then there should be an adaptation strategy. So what do agribusinesses need to be able to adapt to climate change? This is the important thing. It's we've been talking about the need to adapt, and this message is preached all the time. But what do farmers really need to adapt at a business level? First of all, two things: they need learning, they need resources. So that's why we have research there. So the research has to come out from institutions and people that are well placed to do that. And then the research has to be transformed into learning for farmers. And when this learning is done, the farmers also need resources to implement the knowledge and the skills they've acquired. So that leads us to finance, and other factors such as infrastructure. There are certain levels of infrastructure that cannot be provided at the individual or business level. They have to be provided at the public level or the governmental level. So you have infrastructure, you have early warning systems. The good thing is that there are certain initiatives now that are assisting farmers to get access to early warning systems. The data tells us that about 60% of farmers in Africa are not covered by early warning systems, meaning that if there is a disaster that is about to occur in their geographical area, they will not know about it. So that's a gap that needs to be filled. So there needs to be early warning systems, there needs to be infrastructure, and very importantly, there needs to be finance. So the farmers need access to not just finance, affordable finance, ideally concessional finance, which means loans of in the range of 3% interest and for an extended term, so that they can afford to, pay back comfortably. And then apart from finance, apart from loans, farmers need to be insured. So climate risk insurance is an adaptation strategy that needs to be considered. And it's a wide gap, though it's gradually being filled. I know in Nigeria, the National Nigeria Agricultural Insurance Corporation is doing something. And I'm also aware that in countries like Kenya and Rwanda, there are organizations that like ACA Africa that try to connect farmers to insurance policy providers. So these are ways that farmers can adapt to climate change. Of course, this is in addition to agricultural practices. I'm a policy person, so I'm speaking from a policy perspective. Of course, you have your agricultural practices like your cover cropping, use of cover crops, and water conservation strategies, and all that, water conservation, water harvesting, and all that. So, which some of our participants have mentioned, I was happy that they mentioned those, that they learned those things from the online module. So these, in addition to the core agricultural practices, would help farmers to adapt. But like I mentioned before, adaptation is a case-by-case thing. What works in Kenya will not necessarily work in Nigeria. And what works in one part of Nigeria might not work in another part of Nigeria. So adaptation has to be place specific, context specific. So just to have a look at the impacts of climate change on the agri-food system, which is the second part of my presentation, which I'll run through very quickly, because we've already mentioned in the course of the first part one, we've already mentioned a lot of these impacts. So just to, for starters, I'll refer to the IPCC 6th assessment report, which says that 10% of the currently suitable area for major crops and livestock are projected to be climatically unsuitable by mid-century under high emission scenarios. High emission scenarios means if business as usual, if we do not reduce our emissions. So this again, this is the onus on us, on farmers and all stakeholders to adapt by reducing emissions. Like I mentioned earlier, adaptation for farmers is two-way, reducing emissions coming from their own activities and also, using strategies to cushion the effects of those events that must happen because of climate change that has already occurred. So observed impacts are found throughout supply chains. For example, in crop farming, impacts traverse agricultural leads to supply chain disruptions. Climate impacts also interact with other drivers to create disruptions. Climate change increases the risk of hunger, malnutrition, and diet-related mortality, and is particularly problematic in Africa. So, of course, we mentioned pests and seasonal variations and increase of pests and new patterns of diseases and all that. And there's also the effect of climate change on traditional agricultural practices, like climate change can reduce the efficacy of herbicides. And of course, we already mentioned post-harvest losses and increase in certain kinds of pests. So these, so I'll just run through this, knowing that we are going to share the slides later. I know there's a second person that is waiting to present. So I'll run through this. And yeah, very importantly, climate change as an opportunity. So adaptation. So climate change generally is an opportunity, but I want to zero in specifically on adaptation. So for people tend to, in risk management, there's this saying that every risk is also an opportunity. The flip side of every risk is an opportunity. So there are climate vulnerable activities like agriculture, there are climate vulnerable jobs, but then there are new opportunities also coming up as a result of climate action, awareness about climate change. So what are these opportunities? One is agribusinesses have the opportunity to show leadership in sustainability and gain reputational advantage. And this reputational advantage can be converted into an economic and financial advantage in the marketplace. Of course, I already mentioned how people are beginning to buy sustainably and being very intentional about how they consume because of climate change. So farmers can also begin to explore new types of crops, as a result of climate change. As climate change happens, there might be certain crops that are not that were not successful in your own geographical area, but now they do well because of the change in climate. Even as others suffer, there are other crops that will start being good for that area. So climate change is also an opportunity to rediscover sustainable indigenous practices. Like we have contributed very little to climate change, and most of our traditional agricultural practices are very sustainable. So it's time to go back to some of those practices, even as we embrace technology. So we marry our indigenous knowledge of agriculture with these new technologies, and it will help us rediscover what we've lost and even gain a sense of identity in the global climate space. So that is it. I'll stop here and thank everyone for making out the time to listen. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you so much, sir. So I'm sure many of us will have questions to ask the doctor. But before we do that, let's just quickly have the second presentation, after which we'll open the floor for questions and answer. Right, so I'll just share my screen again to read the bio for the next speaker. Okay. So for our next speaker for today, we have Mr. Pius Bakebwa. He's the founder and CEO of BNP Holdings Africa and Nkera Farms Uganda. Mr. Pius Bakebwa is the founder and CEO of BNP Holdings Africa UG and Nkera Farms Limited. With over 10 years of hands-on experience in Uganda's agribusiness sector, he has empowered and worked with numerous young people in agribusiness enterprise development and management, championing agriculture as a viable and profitable career path. Driven by a vision to transform agribusiness into a gold mine, he has trained and impacted over 2,000 youths and women, equipping them with the skills and knowledge necessary to thrive in agricultural enterprises. In collaboration with EHCAI, he played a pivotal role in establishing 10 agribusiness incubation hubs across 10 districts in Uganda, fostering innovation and sustainability in local farming communities. He holds a certificate in project management from the Project Management Institute of Uganda and is a proud member of the Yali Network. Under Nkera Farms Limited, he has established 2 farms in Western Uganda, specializing in coffee enterprise development and management, which contributes to Uganda's position in the global coffee market. Let us give it for Mr. Pius Bakebwa. Please let me see your hands clapping in the comment section before I hand over to Mr. Pius. Good afternoon or good evening, sir. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Am I audible now?
Yes, you're audible. You're welcome.
Interesting. Interesting. First and foremost, I want to first thank you, and I thank Amaka for this opportunity to share knowledge and wisdom with my fellow youth from across Africa. How do I begin? And my presentation, I don't have like a detailed presentation like my fellow brother that had shared like a detailed presentation, but I will use my personal experience and story such that our youth can learn or pick 1 or 2 things from there. So, a young man raised in a humble family from Uganda, who used to drive livelihood. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, a young man from Uganda who grew up in a humble family and used to drive livelihood from picking other people's coffee, like in terms of harvesting coffee from other people's farms, and paid a little bit of peanuts to make sure that he accesses scholastic materials. I'm going to use this story to relate to our today's topic, climate change and agribusiness. How do I come into the climate change or agribusiness sector? When I was a little one, I faced a lot of challenges as a young man growing up in a humble family, whereby I couldn't access rightful school fees or scholastic materials. So I decided as a young man to start harvesting people's coffee. Like, they employ me, I harvest their coffee, they pay me, then I go and buy what? Scholastic materials. So by the grace of God, I managed to study, finish all those levels. Then I had my degree in development studies. You didn't capture that. I have a degree in development studies simply because I wanted to work with the community to promote what we call community empowerment, to make sure that other young people out there do not face the same challenges that I have faced in life. With Excel Hot Consult Agribusiness Incubator in collaboration with Ministry of Water and Environment, whereby the project was in 10 districts in Uganda, and I was the lead person spearheading the program. There I interfaced with farmers, and it's when I tried to find out why are our farmers facing all these challenges. The enterprises were in agribusiness on the project that we carried out were quite diverse. It was some were horticulture, some were cash crops, like in general. That trains farmers on how to carry out the global agronomic practices properly such that they can develop their farms and profit from these farms. So I went and registered an agribusiness company. My first company in agribusiness was called BNP Agri Solutions Limited. Then also when I was still little, my dream was to have a farm, whereby I wanted to earn like other people, like how other people were earning. Like I got inspiration from the people I worked for. And when I started working, I started buying small pieces of land and planting coffee. I'm a coffee farmer, that's why I mentioned it there. But this has been a journey. I've been working and buying land in small pieces and planting. So right from there, I was like, what can I do as a youth? And back to the topic, building resilience against climate and environmental shocks. How do we do that as young people? This is a subject or a topic that is close to my heart since I've been in the sector for the last 10 years. According to World Meteorological Organization 2024 report, it shows that Africa's climate change is deteriorating. I'm happy to speak to people from different African regions, Central Africa, West Africa, and East Africa, whereby we are experiencing different climate conditions. The temperatures have risen up. And this is because of what we do as young people, or as people in Africa. Our interventions have brought a change in climate. Then according to African Development Bank, Africa is expected to earn $1 trillion by 2030. Where is this $1 trillion going to come from? It's from me and the young people, because we are the future of Africa, and it's our time to build the Africa we want through what? Through the works that we do, which is agribusiness and our climate change efforts. Also, according to African Development Bank, it's projected that the population of Africa is going to, currently right now, the population of Africa is 1.5 billion people, but it's projected to double by 2050, which means if the population of Africa doubles by 2050 and you are in agribusiness, all this population needs what? Needs food, because we all eat. I'm happy to be presenting and collaborating with a company which is to do agri-food systems, which is Africa Food Change Makers. I want you to quote me clearly and see where is the opportunity, away from the climate change shocks, where is the opportunity, the ones in agribusiness. The population of Africa is expected to double. This is where the opportunity is in agribusiness. According to my research, the crops grown in West Africa, we have rice, we have millet, we have sorghum, we have coffee, and a variety, wherever you are in that country. There is a demand for food. But before we produce this food, before we add value on this food, there is a production part of all this. But how do we build resilience to combat climate change and make sure that our agribusinesses succeed? I understand I'm speaking to agripreneurs. Before you add value on that product, how is it being produced? How do we build resilience? Back to Inkela Farms. When I started my farm, I had a climate idea in my mind. I made it a point that around my coffee farm, I'm going to plant a tree. My farm is surrounded by Bouleveria trees. In an essence that I will protect the winds from affecting what? From affecting my farm. Here, I'm killing two birds with one stone. I'm earning from the coffee part of it, and I'm protecting the environment through planting trees across the boundaries. Each of us agripreneurs that are here that are involved in production, not from the processing part, we have some farms somewhere. You have a coffee garden, you have a tomato garden, but have you tried to plant trees across it? We might be there like in these webinars talking about climate change, whereby we are not doing anything on ground. If you have a nursery bed, are you planting trees? It's just one step at a time, one tree at a time. I was looking at the attendance. We have 293 people in attendance. If each one of us plants one tree this week, those will be 293 trees planted. Get 293 trees planted multiplied by the next 10 years. How many trees are we going to have been planted by that time? The onus is on us. Last year in 2024, I was in Kigali. In 2024 November, I was in Kigali for the Africa Youth Connect Summit. whereby all the youth from Africa, we convened in Kigali to discuss about climate change, discuss about agribusiness. What can we do to combat climate change? What can we do to make sure that the businesses that we have in agriculture, which we all combine into agribusiness, because agribusiness, then business, that's agriculture in business. How do we profitably profit from these ventures? They are projected 30 million jobs to be created from the green climate finance. How are we going to tap into these opportunities? I was in Kigali also at the starting of this year in March for the Africa Business Heroes. I'm happy I'm speaking to the agripreneurs who are entrepreneurs. Africa Business Heroes recognizes these entrepreneurs who have overcome all these challenges and built a business to the break-even point. But how are we going to reach there for us in agripreneurship? That means we are going to sit down and evaluate our farms, the management practices that we have on our farms. If you are growing tomatoes, how are you taking care of them? The global agronomic practices. In order to combat climate change, climate change, I want to cut it into a layman's understanding that let's drop it down from that climate change issue and we put it like on floods. I will give you an example. If I have a garden and I planted tomatoes, but it rains heavily and my tomatoes are destroyed by these floods, what am I going to do next? Did I dig trenches around my tomato garden such that when water comes, those runoffs don't take away the mulches? Am I mulching? Am I doing the right practices? Let's first look at that. If I'm into agribusiness, do I have the market accessibility, agri-financing? Are we getting real finances? Are we members of SACCOs? Before we discuss these climate change issues, let's first look back at agribusiness. Are we doing the right things? It's from the enterprise development and management that we are going to combat climate change. And do we understand what is climate change? The changes in our everyday climatic conditions. In Uganda, we have 2 planting seasons. I don't know. I actually call Africa like it's a global village, whereby you find most of the characteristics in African countries are the same. Uganda, we have 2 planting seasons, but in those 2 planting seasons, now seasons have changed. Like the way you used to grow crops, right now we used to be like in January, we are going to plant this. Then like in May, they were going to plant this. But now the things have changed. Like last year, I worked on a project called YouGift, whereby Uganda was helping small-scale farmers with small-scale irrigation schemes. But as young people, we don't have money for that, simply because climate change has affected our planting seasons, and we don't have money to introduce or to establish irrigation schemes or to provide irrigation. What are we doing? There is a model that in Uganda we are using of getting these bottled waters. You have seen, I understand all of us, we might at some point have taken water, but those bottles, there is a way you get your bottle, you break it down here, then you make sure that your crops are irrigated every now and then. Can we be innovative and try to come up with technologies to make sure that we irrigate our crops, we irrigate our farms, we irrigate our gardens, which is a technology that is cost effective, because I understand we are young people. We can't have huge sums of money to do a proper irrigation system. But by doing these small scale irrigation schemes, you'll be helping to combat climate change, not to rely on those 2 seasons, but to provide an alternative that will help you to produce throughout the year. Back to the climate change point, how do we work on this climate change? Last year, I happened to attend a conference which was at Speak Resort Munyonyo ONU. It was a 2024 National Renewable Energy Conference in relation to climate change. We are all cutting down trees and getting charcoal to be used in terms of cooking. I don't want to be like Gen Zs, whereby they are cooking using gas and these cookers on electricity. But the world is changing. The world is changing. How can we be able to make sure that we adapt from the other cooking models that we used to have, or that used to encourage deforestation, to the new cooking methods? How do we preserve the natural resources that we have, the forests? It starts with me and you. How do we protect ourselves from throwing around polythene bags? I'm happy with Rwanda, whereby they have a policy, you can't throw any polythene bag anywhere. I feel like African countries should adapt to this. You don't take your polythene bags anywhere, you dump them in one place, because climate change starts within us. If you go and buy something and you dump a Kavela somewhere, that Kavela is going to block a water runoff which was coming from somewhere, and that water runoff, the water is going to converge in one place, and when it becomes too much, it's going to go away, it's going to run off and affect your gardens. Those are the adverse effects of climate change that come simply because of our actions as individuals. And I really believe that we have the power, we have the capacity. Right now, I'm facilitating this session from the source of the River Nile, whereby I've been engaged in a one-week meeting, whereby, like the civil society, I have another organization which is called BNP Philanthropies Africa, which is into the philanthropic world. We are sitting down and discussing the new funding models, local fundraising models. Because in agribusiness, we used to have to be funded by World Bank. Most projects were funded by World Bank. Most projects are funded by embassies. But look here, the world has changed. There is no money. The US government has cut all the aid. You know what happened to USAID? All over the world. But how do we as agripreneurs cut down costs and be innovative, trying to come out with different financing models? Before you make your agribusiness profitable, you must have first look for financing. There is what we call climate financing. There is money moving around climate change, but how are we positioning ourselves to tap into this money? But I don't want you to tap into this money by having briefcase farms whereby you are a CEO, but you have never stepped in the garden. I want you to be on ground, such that when you are presenting to an investor that I'm into climate change, you have already bought some land somewhere, or notified or noticed some area whereby already planted trees. I don't want you to be these guys that are, briefcase companies, briefcase farms. I am a CEO of so and so farm, but you have never been in the garden. Let me go to the value addition point of view, like the entire agribusiness value chain. You are adding value on the crops, but are you conscious of the standards? How are these crops grown? If I'm growing tomatoes and I'm spraying every now and then, that means tomato is a food, the coffee is a food. If I'm overspraying, that means I'm going to affect other people. It's food, it's a beverage. How are we mindful of these practices as young people? We have the capacity to build the Africa that we want using African solutions. Right now, there is a trend whereby young people are designing apps. Someone wakes up and designs an app that is going to test if how long am I going to sleep? Really, Africa is not facing a problem of insomnia. Africa is facing a poverty challenge. Africa is facing a nutrition challenge. Africa is facing a food challenge. How are we embarking on all this? The outgoing president of African Development Bank, Akin Adesina, mentioned something interesting, that agribusiness is the new gold mine. Agribusiness is the sector that is going to produce the next billionaires. Based on the fact that I have told you that the African Development Bank indicates that African population is going to double in the next, from right now up to 2050, indicates that these guys will need food. That's how we are affecting are we mindful of how we are affecting our environment using our practices? As an organization, do you have a corporate social responsibility towards their environment? What have you done on ground? Before we engage in this discussion, such that we can go back, reflect, and see different methodologies that we can apply to make sure that we participate and contribute to the things that we want. I'm so happy, Precious, that you come up with this topic, and I'm trying to make sure that how we build resilience against climate shocks. We need to be prepared for all these things come. You saw what happened in China and what has been around all over these countries. They have tried to construct malls everywhere. That means you are destroying You are destroying the channels that will be taking water away. People have cut down forests. In terms of advocacy, have you tried to create an advocacy organization whereby you are advocating against people who are cutting down trees, people who are taking out the natural forests, people who are disposing polythene bags everywhere? These are the little efforts that we can put on to make sure that we do some work on the ground. I want us to reflect, all the agripreneurs who are here, on the work that we are doing in our countries. Reflect on the crop that you are growing. Before you seek for support, before you say that you are protecting the climate change or you are combating against climate change, look at the quality of the crop that you are planting. Are you getting seeds from the right seed suppliers? Are you getting herbicides from the certified people? Are you getting fertilizers from the real certified people? Or you are just getting fertilizers from nowhere? From the agribusiness point of view, in terms of business, how are you accessing the market? Have you answered all those questions? Let's take, for instance, at my farm, we grow coffee. After growing coffee, we haven't gone into processing, but the idea is to go into processing and have branded coffee on the market. But right now, how am I getting clients? If I don't prepare my coffee well, if you harvest coffee which is not ready, no one is going to give me money. And another thing that we are facing right now, there is no employment. If you are a CEO of an agripreneur business, an agripreneur farm, the onus is on you to create jobs. The population of Africa is growing, but jobs are not growing. And we are the people you are supporting with your small farm. You have someone who will come and dig for you and you pay daily. Reflect on that, and if I didn't create this farm, or if I didn't set up this garden to employ this person, where was he or she going to get lunch today? That means you have solved an employment problem. You have solved a problem of safety, because if someone doesn't have what to eat and you have, he's going to come and steal. It's via through this kind of mindset that we are going to build the Africa that we want, that we are going to create these businesses. Let's take, for instance, our vision at BNP Holdings Africa is to build a Pan-African business conglomerate that will be like in 10 African countries. But how are we doing this? Here I'm on the point of networking and positioning our businesses. Right now, I'm facilitating from Uganda. But it's so interesting how I came to know Professor Maka. How are we positioning ourselves? I don't want you to look at your farm from Nigeria or from Central African Republic or from Kenya or from Rwanda. Look at your agribusiness farm as a farm that can scale to other countries, but on the right foundations, doing the right things. I was in Kigali, I said, for Africa Business Heroes, and I was so happy to interact with people who have companies that are almost in 15 African countries. And these are young people like you and me. If it's possible for them the other side, then it's also possible for you. I want us to believe. I want us to understand that agribusiness and climate change, it's a timeless subject. Business is just for the case of receiving grants. I've seen a trend. I've been part of so many courts whereby people register businesses, they pretend like they are doing the real work to get grants. To sit down and become the real entrepreneur. I want you to sit down and do the real agribusiness. I want you to sit down and decide to participate in combating climate change by planting trees, by advocating against people who are cutting down trees, by advocating against people who spread around the Decavela or polythene bags, by doing the real work on the ground. Be an advocate of climate change. Be an advocate of agribusiness. Do the real work on the ground. It doesn't matter how much acres of land that you have. 1 acre can get you out of poverty. 1 acre can create a job for you. Thank you so much, Patience. I think my colleague can also add on. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Pius. Thank you for that elaborate explanation. So if you have questions for either Mr. Pius or Dr. Benjamin, please raise your hand and I'll call you to unmute and ask your questions. Please, when you're asking your question, just direct it to either of the speakers that you really want to take the question, so we don't waste too much time allowing both speakers to talk on a question. So please, yes, I'll just wait for a while and see if there are hands raised for questions. Okay, I think I have 1, 2 hands now, 3. Okay, so I have 3 hands. Please, after now, if you raise your hand again, I'll not call you. All right, thank you so much, Mr. Pius. Thank you so much for all of that. So quickly, we'll start with Bem Asen, the first person to ask question. Then Gifty's iPhone. Please, Gifty's iPhone, help us change your name to your real name so that we're able to capture your attendance properly. Then Amogelang Gabon, then John Bosco, Podiogu, and Gaius. We have just these people. If you come after this, please just put your question in the comment section because I will not call you. All right, so let's shoot. Bem Asen, please go ahead and ask your question. I'll ask you to unmute.
All right, thank you for giving me the chance to speak, and it's been a very insightful session from both speakers. So I'm from Benue, Nigeria. So if you know Benue is a land of agriculture. It's actually the food basket of the nation here in Nigeria. So, but we have suffered a lot of issues. The way that climate change affects us in Benue is the fact that there is a farmer herder clashes. So basically what happens is that in the northern part of Nigeria, there's desertification is encroaching, and that is making the herders who are originally from the north move down here. So basically this has crippled agricultural activities. I used to be a huge farmer of crops and also animals, but what has happened this year is that I actually have not planted. So based on your experiences, now I'm speaking to the both speakers, based on your experiences of implementing agriculture, traveling around the world, what are the sort of solutions that you think young farmers who don't have a lot of money like myself, who reside in locations where climate change is affecting by way of conflict, by way of invasion of other people to take over our resources? How do young people like me, whose farms are being raided every day, stand a chance to survive? What sort of advice do you have for me? Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Bem Asen. So now Bem is asking the both speakers, but let's see how to direct this question to
Can
Dr.
I answer that?
Oh, really? Yeah, thank you, sir. I was going to call Dr. Benjamin because he's a Nigerian, but please go ahead, sir.
Oh, good, good. Much as I'm not a Nigerian, but thank you, Bem, for such a wonderful question. For young people without money, money will never be enough, actually. And when you talk about, I have read about Nigeria and some arid places. There are two key takeaways that I want you to take from me. I don't know whether you are going to implement on them, but you just learn one thing. Agriculture doesn't want you to have a lot of land. Agriculture wants you to put in an effort. You can, if your region is in arid or is affected by a drought, you can rent land from somewhere, whereby they rent land on a yearly basis. You pay some money and you carry out your activities from there. Or you can opt for you can opt for a small scale irrigation scheme whereby you become innovative. If there is no rain in your place, you become innovative, you create your own irrigation model, and you'll be able to plant. Bem, am I making sense? You'll be able to plant. Then also, it's not all about money, it's all about courage. Courage to practice something. If you fail once, try again. Agriculture doesn't need people who will just go there simply because I don't want to make agriculture look sexy. I want to make agriculture be real agriculture. You are entirely entering into this agriculture thing as a business. You are not entering agriculture just as a side hustle. It needs full participation. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, so Dr. Benjamin, do you have something to add?
Yes, if I may respond to that, I want to first of all say that my fellow speaker has responded as he should respond from a very business perspective. which should be the perspective from which we ordinarily consider these things. But looking at our situation in Nigeria, things are not considered from that angle. People would say, if you need land, then you pay for it, you rent it. If it doesn't belong to you, you rent it. So that's the way it should be. But then again, there is also you also have to consider it from the perspective of the victims of climate change. This is not individual displacement. It's not the displacement of a few persons. It's mass displacement. And as some people would say, everyone has a right to a place under the sun. So, but that right doesn't come by violating another person's right. So it's really the place of the government to establish a system for resettling people that are displaced by that climate displaced persons. We should have a system whereby we can negotiate on a large scale, collective bargaining. I think that's the right word I should use. There should be some form of collective bargaining between displaced communities and host communities, so that some sort of resettlement can take place. And the right person to be the mediator in such a case would be the government. What we have now is a situation where people move from their indigenous lands and they go to other places and fight with the indigens there, and it's a whole chaos. It's a form of resource war, actually, triggered by, because these people are coming for the greener pastures in Benue State. Benue is green. There's a lot of pasture for livestock there. But then these places are also these spaces are used by the locals for farming. So it's really in the place of the government to come with a framework for collective bargaining between these displaced persons and the host communities. But then again, the issue is more complicated than the way it seems on the surface. It's about the land tenure system in Nigeria. We have a Land Use Act, and the government can decide to expropriate land, take over, compulsorily acquire land from a particular community, which ordinarily should be for a public purpose. And that has been suggested. If you remember, when we're talking about the issue of ranching, that has been suggested, and people also were opposed to it and said, okay, if livestock farming is somebody's business, then the smart business decision should be for them to acquire resources for their own business. Government should not compulsorily acquire and then give to. Okay, if that should be the case, well, how about people who trade? Then government should also compulsorily acquire spaces for them to build plazas and all that. So, but after all is said and done, I think the best, because it's a crisis situation, and crisis is something that is an exception to the normal rule. It creates an exception. So it's something that it should trigger the rules of crisis management, which means there has, like I said before, there has to be some form of collective bargaining, which the government will be involved in resettling people that are permanently displaced by climate change. And then those that are not permanently displaced, there should be some form of, a temporary measure while measures are being put in place to resettle them back in their home places. As at the moment, there is no meaningful efforts to make sure that these people return to where they come from, and that is a big problem.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you. So next person is Gifty Siphon. Please unmute and speak.
Hi, good afternoon, good evening, everybody.
Good afternoon.
I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you. Please help us change your name to
Although,
your real
madam,
name.
I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to learn how to change it. But I think it's a great community, very insightful presentation from both speakers. I know you're not a speaker, but this question concerns you as well, and I want to hear the stand of Team Brace on this. But my question is directed towards Dr. Benjamin. In his presentation, I think somewhere around, is it the mitigation or adaptation? There was some of the key drivers to tackle the issues of climate, which has to do with awareness creation. For instance, back home in Ghana, I'm Gifty Manye, but on social media, I'm known as the Ghanaian farmer. I'm an agri journalist. I'm a young farmer and I'm an SDG advocate. So mainly my work revolves around traveling across the entire 16 region in Ghana, engaging farmers on their activities, enlightening the youth about farming opportunities to explore and changing the narrative. Most of the times I also try to ask them questions about their knowledge about climate issues and how they are practicing smart climate farming and sustainable agriculture. Now, when it's come to awareness creation, you and I know that it's more of community engagement, using a bit of digital media, using a bit of traditional media to raise the awareness. But here's the case that the funding that needs to support or back some of us to do this work has become a problem. In this case, I don't know if African Food Chain Makers, you have an office in Ghana, or there is a way that you solicit for funding to support agri journalists or communicators who are going about their work and advocating or educating farmers about climate issues, adaptation, mitigations, and all that. Dr. Benjamin, what are the systems? You are in policy. You know what initiatives that we can tap into to get some funding, or you know what opportunities that are available that you can connect some of us to tap into this funding to be able to drive this awareness and Brace as well. Now we are a family. I'm part of the team, or I'm part of your cohort now. How are you also helping people within my space to be able to source or tap into some funding to champion awareness creation? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gift. Thank you so much. So, Dr. Benjamin, do you want to go? They have asked
Yes,
me and you question.
Yes,
All
thank
right.
you. So I'll be very brief. So what I'll say is, please drop your email address and curate a number of resources and share with you, and also try to be in touch with you after the session.
Okay, so Gifts, Dr. Benjamin will be in touch with you after the session. So for African Food Chain Makers, like we've always explained that the Brace program is not the only thing that we do. We have some other programs within the African Food Chain Makers. And one very important thing that we do is changing narrative. Is actually an arm of the African Food Chain Makers, where we try to do podcasts, documentaries, a whole lot of working with journalists and media people to be able to change narrative of Africa or how Africa is being perceived and all that. So we do not directly give funding to journalists, but then we work with them to be able to also help amplify their work, to be able to, partner with them to see how we can raise voices together and get some of these things done. And yes, I know you are now a part of the Brace program, but also register to become a member of African Food Chain Makers, and then we can take this up and then work together to see how we can also get some of these things across board within the African continent. Thank you so much, Gift, and I hope we're connecting after now, and Dr. Benjamin is also waiting to connect with you. Thank you so much. Amogelang, please go ahead.
Hello, everyone. How are you?
Yes, please. I can hear you. Go ahead.
Good. I think this question is not gonna be for me alone. I joined this course wanting to learn more about climate changes. But if we look at the current situation within Africa, we supply most of the countries outside of Africa. And they are the most people. Climate change impacts the world. It doesn't impact Africa alone. And they are the people that we supply most our produce to. And based on my research, they are the ones who contribute more to climate change in a bad way. For example, South Africa produces a lot of tomatoes, but the best produce goes out to America. So, like I said, my question is not based on me alone. Why do we have to, as Africans, have to focus so much in this climate, while the countries that we are supplying, I can say, sadly, they don't even care, because if you check Africa, we have a lot of population, but we contribute less, sadly, compared to the Americans and the Asian countries. So why do we need to focus so much more on this climate change? Why not focus on making money? Doesn't matter how it affects us as Africans. I know that I'm not asking for me alone, hence I am asking this question. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. So, Dr. Benjamin or Mr. Pius, anyone?
I think I'd like to respond to that. Okay, so I think the point he has made is a very valid point. I mean, and he's not the first to raise it. And it also came up at the very early stage of negotiating the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, which is the background to all what we are doing in climate change, right? So the African countries raised this objection, and the small island states, the states in the Caribbean and the developing countries generally, they raised this objection that looking at the historical emissions, we have contributed little or nothing to climate change, right? So why should we bear the responsibility for, adaptation or mitigation? So there's a clause in the UNFCCC, which is common but differentiated responsibilities, the principle of common but differentiated. That's how that principle came about, what he just asked now. So what that principle is about is really, we are going to adapt and going to mitigate, climate change, knowing that if we don't, we risk, harming the environment. And then if we pull out as a block, we are destroying the global consensus to fight climate change. But even at that, having said that, we shouldn't bear the same responsibility with those that have historical responsibility for this emission. So there is actually a provision for Africans to take the back seat when it comes to financing climate action, But in practice, how have we been able to, the big question is, how have we been able to translate this into a climate strategy? That's the big question, because we live in a global political space, right? And there are tools of diplomacy that Western countries can use to push policies around the world, apart from international treaties. So they're doing a lot of work in Africa to make sure that Africans do engage in climate action. But if you followed the proceedings at COP29, you would also remember that, especially, particularly the Indian delegates and the DG of the National Council on Climate Change, Nigerian focal point for climate issues, they raised this same issue, that the commitment of the Western countries, the developed countries, is too small, given the principles in the UNFCCC. So back to your question, I would say you are right. We should make sure that those that are responsible for climate change bear the greater responsibility. But at the same time, we must also try to live in the future, because a time is coming where the whole world system is going to run on a sustainable framework. For instance, I'll give you an example. The European Union is coming up with the carbon border adjustment mechanism, which we are opposing as Africans. A lot of Africans are opposed to it. And basically what that would do is that it would make it impossible for us to export into Europe for certain key industries, unless there is a price on carbon. So for instance, if you are producing cement and you are exporting to Europe, unless you can prove that you have placed a tax or a price on the carbon that was emitted, that there was either a carbon tax or there was an emissions trading market where the producers bought carbon credits, you cannot export that product to Europe. So we should also be planning for the future of the world. We should not, I mean, we missed out on the Industrial Revolution. We shouldn't miss out on, you know, the next revolution that is coming. So while we try to hold the West responsible for their historical emissions, I think we should try to balance our strategy. So that's my take on it.
Patience, can I add a brief on what my brother has submitted?
Yes.
Yesterday I happened to be part of the South African meeting by an organization called Africa No Filter. We are trying to come up with a conversation on how to tell the Africa's story different. We can't tell the Africa story different when we still compare Africa with other European countries. Africa is in a bid to combat climate change, is trying to introduce what we call electrical vehicles or electric bikes in order to convert the fumes that are produced all got from these cars and the motorbikes. How do I bring this, or how do I align this to the question asked? If you are in a family, if you are in a community and you see your neighbor who is rich, is not bothered about a certain issue, don't follow your neighbor. Because for you don't have the financial resources or the financial capacity to address a problem when it comes. We have seen the climatic changes happening in these European countries. That's why they have a winter season and a summer season. When a winter season or a summer season comes, they suffer more. I'm sitting back waiting for a moment when a winter season or a summer season happens here in Africa. Africans, we are a little bit fragile or we are vulnerable. What will happen if we sit back and relax and we let these adverse effects happen to us? We are going to be affected more. You saw what happened to us during the COVID-19. We are out in arms looking for funds. Different organizations came up, raised their hands, tried to come close to make sure that they fund for Africa. But if we have the capacity right now to participate in combating climate change, I think it's the right thing for Africa to do, to come up with initiatives in order to combat climate change, instead of waiting to see the countries that are producing these fumes, the countries with so many factories and that are producing cars and everything are not doing nothing about climate change. The COP29 tried to address these issues, but it's time for Africa to craft African solutions without looking at whether other people are doing enough or they're not doing anything. That's why I don't know whether some of you follow President Kagame. When President Kagame is speaking, he normally says that African challenges to be solved by Africans because they are the ones that understand it more. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you. And just to add my voice to what has been said, if we want to look away because we're not the one causing all of the climate issues that's ongoing, but we're very much affected by climate change. Africa is one of the continents that is much hit by the effects of climate change and all that. So we're going to sit and look while we keep being hit by climate change, and then the people that are causing it are not being held responsible for it. And that's actually why we need to raise our voice. We need to speak to it. We need to be part of it. We need to know what is happening in the world. As a matter of fact, there is one of the modules in this course that has to do with opportunities in climate smart agriculture and all of the carbon markets and all of that being discussed in it. And one of the very vital things we keep talking about is the fact that even though the Western climates have now started looking at climate financing and all that, Africans, we have still not started looking at either way. We like the carbon market and all that. How many countries in Africa have even started, have even launched into this carbon market properly and all that? And then there's money in there, there's finances in there and all that, but we're not tapping into it because why? most of us think that, oh, Africans, we have very good climate, we have all of the things that is needed and all that. We really are not participating. We don't have all the industry or the factories, or we are not emitting any form of carbon, so we don't have business discussing climate change. But then we are worse hit by climate change, and so we really need to be part of it. If we are not part of it now, then there's no other time, because people will just keep messing with us and then affecting us the more, and then we keep staying here and say, oh, because we are not emitting carbon, we're not doing anything to the atmosphere, we're not doing anything and all of that, let's just keep staying and looking and staying aloof. No, this is not the time to stay aloof, and that's actually one of the awareness that the BRACE program is creating. We all need to be a part of it to be able to solve it properly as a continent. Thank you so much, Dr. Benjamin and Mr. Pius. John Bosco, please go ahead. I have one. Oh, Odetayo and Moses, you came late. Please just drop your question in the comment section. I'll read it. I have two more persons. John Bosco, please go ahead. Unmute and speak.
Yes, thank you so much. My name is John Bosco, and I'm from Uganda. And in Uganda, it is evening. Good evening, everyone. I hope you are hearing me very well.
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
All right. So I'm so grateful to be part of this, and I'm from the background of community development and community engagement. And when it comes to this, I have worked on a number of projects relating to climate change and adaptations. Mine is not going to be a question, but I'm making contributions towards what we really need to do to see that climate change is being handled. One thing that I have experienced from the fields I have worked in is mindset. When we look at climate change being motivated by human activities, I look at the mindset being a key challenge to contributing to climate change. So what we need to do as change makers, as people in this cause, we need to work on the mindset of people in terms of in terms of sensibility on the people's actions. Because some people are contributing to climate change just simply because they are not mindful of their actions. So we need to work on that. Then two, I'm looking at the incentivization to incentivize those people who do good towards climate change, mitigation and adaptation. Then three, I'm looking at the fundraising, because we need to know that human activity is being influenced by what people need to have as in terms of food and in terms of finances to work on their issues. So there is an issue of looking at how people get finances, and especially where I heard people talk about fundraising from maybe donor agencies and so on. But there is a new move now whereby we need to fund to begin looking at the available resources. The people we live with, the people we stay with, can contribute to financing of these activities that help us in climate change mitigation. Because like of recent, when we look at the growing of year-round growing of crops, which will at times need water, and you find that people don't have water and they have to tap water or to harvest water. So I was developing a model whereby a group of women accepted to do the savings for the purpose of harvesting water, which water they would in turn use to irrigate on their vegetable crops. So I look at helping the communities to understand that they have capabilities, they have that ability of contributing money on their own without necessarily waiting for donor funding. Then lastly, I'm looking at the issue of establishment of demonstration farms, putting into practice all these mitigation measures we are talking about, so that with these demonstration farms, we can target the youth who make the biggest part, the biggest percentages of our population, to get interested into agriculture, to get interested into this food chain system, so that they can also help in contributing to producing more food, and as well as practicing good practices which will help us in climate change mitigation. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. I'm sorry I had a network glitch. I'm very sorry about that. So I think the last person I have is Podiogu. Please go ahead and speak. Podiogu, please go ahead and speak. Okay, if Podiogu is not speaking, please guide us. Go ahead. I think I'll just give the last opportunity to Gaius to speak. Podiogu, I'm asking you to unmute. Please unmute and speak. Podiogu, if you are speaking, I can't hear you.
Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Oh, please, Gaius, maybe you should wait for Podiogu to speak.
Okay.
See that. Okay,
Sorry,
yes,
I
please
speak
go
in
ahead. Thank you. Yes, go ahead, please.
Ok, merci, bonsoir et merci aussi au présentateur. Donc, moi, je suis Pierre Poudjougou du Mali et je suis le cofondateur d'une entreprise agricole, donc du nom de Faso Séné. Et le problème auquel donc, plusieurs entreprises sont confrontées aujourd'hui, c'est le problème de financement.
Who is interpreting? Who is currently?
Vous m'entendez? Je disais, le problème auquel maintenant beaucoup d'entrepreneurs sont confrontés, c'est le problème de financement. Donc, alors, ma question est de savoir quelles sources de financement, fonds verts, subventions, crédits carbone sont disponibles pour les entreprises agricoles engagées dans la résilience climatique et comment convaincre les investisseurs d'accompagner des projets agricoles durables. Thank you.
I think his question is what kind of climate finance is available to farmers. From my own little knowledge of French.
Hi, Ramatu, please, if you can hear me, kindly interpret what the last French speaker said. Patience is currently having a connectivity issues. Odrisa, can you?
Okay, sorry, I'm having so much network glitch. I'm sorry. The thing is kicking me in and out. I am very, very sorry about that. So Podiogu asked a question, and one of our interpreters is supposed to quickly interpret that to us. I don't know if that has been done, but otherwise, I will just wait for Drissa or Ramatu, either of them, to do the interpretation so that we can, any of the facilitators can attend to Podiego's question and go ahead. So, but before then, let me just give an opportunity to one more person while we wait for our interpreters to do the interpretation. I would ask Gaius to speak. So please, this is the last speaker. Thank you, Gaius. Congratulations on being the last. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, I very much appreciate our speakers for the time, the bonus, and the trust the topics given to them. Thank you very much, sir. I want to ask, what is advised? Should one use locals for farm labor, or because in my case, I'm experiencing an issue where the locals around are more, I don't know how to put it, they are not forthcoming. I just want to ask from your experiences that what is better to ensure the locals are part of the farm staff and work with them, or to just get expatriates from outside the locality, since locals are not doing well. Let me just put it like that. Thank you very much.
I did not quite get that well. Can my brother Benjamin try to respond to that?
Okay, his question was, if you have a farm and you have the option of employing members, individuals from the host community where you have your farm, that's the locals, and people from outside, what do you do? Especially where the locals are not well trained to perform the duties of farm. I believe that's your question.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That's right, sir.
Okay.
If you have a farm in the host, if you have a farm in a host community and the locals do not know how to practice the agribusiness practices, that's the question.
Yes, yes.
If you have a farm in a host community and the community holders or the locals do not understand the agronomic practices, I think the best way would be to train and skill them, because you can't bring labor from outside. But if you provide them with skills and enough resources to carry out your farm, they can be able to take care of it. It's all about training and skilling, about what you want. Remember, you are the vision bearer of the farm. You are the one who understands how you want your farm to be run. For them, they don't understand the vision of your farm, or they don't understand the crops that you are doing, the crops that you are planting. The onus is on you to train and skill them to make sure that your farm becomes sustainable and it grows. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much. This is the much that we can take for today because our time is fast spent. So if you still have questions that you want to ask, or you have more clarification and all that, you can send it to us on the Braze email, or send it even via the WhatsApp admins and all that. We'll ensure that we'll get it across to the facilitators, and we'll get their answers back to you. That way, nobody is left behind. But then we have to move now. But before we let our facilitators go, what we'll always do is to have like a photograph with our facilitators. We used to call it family pictures here in African Food Chain Makers. It is for us to know that we were in the same session together. For example, when I come to Uganda, there's no way I'm not looking for Mr. Pius and telling you that I was once in a session with you. So please let us all do that. And then if you are here, please let us put on our videos, put on our best smiles. It's just that my smile is not coming well this time. I don't know why. But let's put on our best smiles and have a photo with Mr. Pius and Dr. Benjamin. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank Dr. Benjamin. This is really, 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 really beautiful. Thank you for giving us this time. We do not take it for granted in any ways. We appreciate it big time. Thank you so much for everything and then for speaking with us today. We hope to look out for some other time for you to be on our platform again and share with our participants. But for today, we are very much grateful. Thank you so much. And then, dear participants, let's say thank you to Dr. Benjamin and Mr. Pius in the comment section. Thank you so much. We appreciate. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you. So quickly, I would quickly want to go through the portal, but then for the portal walkthrough, we have a very limited time. So what we will do this time around yet again, I was kicked out. So have you asked your questions, Sifilili? If you have, please, I'm sorry, you have to ask again. I'm sorry, I'm very sorry, but please go ahead and ask again. Sifilili, I'm asking you to unmute and ask your question around the portal.
No, ma'am. Opportunity.
Yes, I can hear you.
I just wanted to comment on a training we've been attending so far, because now as much as we are the SMMEs, maybe I could get a clarity on how you guys scale the farmers, because what I've seen in the portal, especially the technologies that is being used there, it's way expensive. So some of us, maybe on my side, I can't even afford a drone in my farm. So like when we attend the trainings of this matter, I think it shall be arranged it should be
All right, thank you so
Hello?
much, Sifelele. I understand your question. You're asking the technology that are being used and all of that. So we're going to be doing for module 2, that's actually what we're going to be talking about, all of this technology in farm, in production, the climate mitigation and adaptation strategies in production, both crop and livestock. So you get to understand most of the technologies. Some are actually very cheap and some are kind of expensive, but then you get to learn that subsequently, so that we don't keep dragging and wasting time. So, but before I ask the next question, we'll have like a very short poll which we want all our participants to attend to. So please, I'll be launching the poll now. If you see it on the screen, please just ask answer the questions. They are just questions to help us make the live interactive session better and more effective for you. So please, the poll is on the screen now. Please help us answer these questions that you're seeing here. It will help us plan and, you know, prepare better for the next live interactive session for you. And then that way we're able to make it more effective and more engaging for all participants. So if you are seeing it, please go ahead and answer the questions on your screen. Okay, thank you very much. I think one person has started engaging. Okay, I have 3, I have 4. Please let's answer the questions. When you see it, please attend to them. It's actually very important for us to, you know, make the live interactive session more engaging and better for everyone. So I'll just leave it on the screen while I allow everybody to, you know, participate, and let people that want to ask questions ask. So we are doing the two concurrently. You're filling the survey and then we're asking questions at the same time. So Amoge Lang, it's you again. So go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I am a sucker for distinctions, so I have to ask this question because when we do the modules, we get the marks immediately after that. If I know that I got full marks in a module, how do you actually mark these modules? Because I am confident that on my first one, I got 100%. But judging from based on what I saw, the mark scoring is 70%. And I am sure that I answered all 10 questions correctly. So are you going to now produce the answers at a later stage for each and every module, and then we will compare to our answers, or what?
Okay.
Thank you.
So it's actually a computer-based test, so we don't have to ask you to. That's actually why you see your scores immediately, because they have been, you know, pre-installed into the computer or into the portal where both the answers and the questions are there. The correct answer is there, and then they have 3 wrong answers and 1 correct one, another. So when you choose the one that is wrong, the computer just automatically marks it for you, another. So we are not the one that is manually computing it and all that. So the facilitators have their, after doing the training and the presentation and all that, they set their questions by themselves and put in all the wrong answers as well as the right answer. So we just install them into the portal the same way we get it from the facilitators and all that. So we don't get to mark it. We are not marking it manually and all that. So thank you very much. Susan, please go ahead. Susan, I'm asking you to unmute. Okay, Susan has dropped her hand, so I feel maybe our question has been answered. So if you still have any question, okay, there's Anas Mohammed. So Anas Mohammed, I'll ask you to unmute and ask your question, but please, this survey is still on the screen and we want more people to please answer them, and as that will be very important of you know, useful for us. Anas, please go ahead.
Good evening to everyone.
Good evening.
I'm highly grateful that this session is lively and interactive. So my question now is, after the question and answer in module 1, is there still any question and answer ahead? For each session that we end in every week, is there any, you know, test and examination, or is there any something that will be carried out before we step to another week? That's my question.
Yes, please. So for every module, there is an assessment you take to be able to assess the next module. So when you finish module 1, you take an assessment, and after you complete that assessment, you go further to module 2, and that is how it is till module 6. So for all the 6 modules, we have 6 assessments for every module. Thank you. Enoch, please go ahead. The survey is still on the screen. Enoch, please go ahead. I'm asking you to unmute.
Okay, hello, good afternoon, good evening.
Yes,
My name. So, my question is concerning climate change. We know that agriculture also contributes
Oh,
to.
please don't let us ask questions on climate change. It's strictly on the portal, please.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
if you have questions on climate change or any of the things that
I
the
just
facilitators
wanted
have talked
to
about.
speak to.
Okay.
Okay, so how will I get in touch with Dr. Benjamin or Mr. Benjamin?
Don't worry, reach out to us and then we'll tell you how to get in touch.
All right, sure.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Eukarya,
much.
please go ahead. Eukarya, please, I'm asking you to unmute and go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I observed that most of the presentations are mainly on crop and crop-related issues. And I'm looking forward to more of livestock because I'm animal husbandry specialist and I do more of aggregation and also in the policy sector, working with the federal government, Federal Ministry of Agriculture, Nigeria. So I will be more impressed if issues around livestock will be discussed further.
All right,
and
thank you so much,
with the questions around the. Yeah, I'm so impressed with the question from a person talking about the header farmers clash in Benue. Please, I would like if that could be discussed further.
All right, thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much. So in subsequent weeks, we have modules that, for example, module 2 talks about adaptation and mitigation strategies in both crop production and animal production, livestock. So you'll get to see all of that in the coming weeks, as well as we have the policy, climate change policy in module 6. So all of that are actually within the modules. Vicky. Okay, so I think we need to end this session because I've been kicked out for the opt-in time. Can anyone hear me? Mr. Pius, please confirm that you can hear me.
I can hear you.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you. So it means someone can still hear me. So please, thank you very much for everyone that have filled the poll, and very important information in case I'm kicked out again is that for next week live interactive session, which is for week 2, which is the module 2, we're going to be having it on Thursday because in Nigeria, Friday is public holidays in Nigeria, or is even worldwide, I don't know. The Muslim public holiday is on Friday next week, which is on the 6th. So this time around, we're going to be having the live interactive session on the 5th of June, which is next week, Thursday. That's actually a very important conversation or important information for us. So please, we're going to be sending you the notice as well as other information. And for those that have not joined the WhatsApp group, we'll also send the link to the WhatsApp group for you to join the WhatsApp group. And for those that want to listen to the session today again, we're going to send the link to this session so that you can listen to it again. And then if you have questions, please let us know. Would really be willing to answer all your questions. And for those that have not been able to answer their questions, please engage any of the admins in the WhatsApp group or send us an email at brace@afchub.org. We'll be very glad to answer all your questions. So let's call it a day. Is it a day or an evening? Depending on wherever you're joining us from. Do have a good afternoon or a good evening. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And I apologize deeply for all of the back and forth with the network. I promise it's not going to be like this next week. Thank you so much, everyone. And bye. Do have a good evening.